holla murder. Sanko licky love up on the dam and the gala holla.
Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko licky love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko licky love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko kissy love upon the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko kissy love upon the dam and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko chasey love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko chasey love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko catchy love upon the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko catchy love upon the dam and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko squeezy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko squeezy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko let me love upon the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko let me love upon the dam and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy, you better run.
This is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko licky love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko licky love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko kissy love upon the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko kissy love upon the dam and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko chasey love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko chasey love up on the dam and the gala holla.
All right, hey, guess what? Good morning, and it's just a little after 7 o'clock. I'm sorry, a little well, it's 7 minutes after 11 o'clock. I don't want to get confused. And so I just thought to pop in and spend a few minutes with you as we wrap up on the morning section and enter into afternoon, right? So good morning, all of you. Hope that you would find a time to share the link and let's get ready with what is boiling up in Guyana. And we oftentimes say the other side of the coin, the things that they want to push underneath the rug, and they expect people to sit by and just accept those things. We're not going to accept them at all, at least, and we will keep the pressure up, so to speak. We will keep the pressure up because we know that they're watching us. The funny thing is, we don't care that they're watching us. We don't care what they do. We are not bothered about what they say. However, it is our duty to ensure that we give you guys the other side of the coin. And usually the other side of the coin is the truth from what they want to cover up in Guyana. And so we're not going to sit and allow the sort of racism and the corruption that we're seeing that is evident. It is evident in Guyana. We're not going to turn a blind eye to that. So let me just start off by welcoming all of you, and let us stay focused on what we have to do and what we have to discuss, and some positive vibes your way. I've noticed some folks have asked about the evening show. The evening show is still on, and nothing has happened to it, but we just decided to peep them. They are peeping us, so we are peeping them as well. But you'll get me back in the evenings. Don't worry about that. Let's focus on this, mind you. All right. So Garfield Collins and the entire crew, good morning to you. Good morning to every one of you. Because if I don't say good morning to some of you, you'll be a bit upset, right? But don't get upset because I say good morning to some and I don't say good morning to you. Alison Morris, good morning. Wendy Caesar, good morning. Saying good morning to all of the females. I'm not too bothered about the males. Say German Anthony Fenty, good morning. I'm not sure if he's related to Rihanna because she's from the Fenty clan. Deborah Sharona, nice name, Sharona. Good morning to all of you. Patricia Sana, Deborah. No, we said Deborah, Charlene, Aletha, and the entire crew. Good morning to all of you guys. All right, so let me see. What are some of the things bothering you? Brenda Casey, good morning. Allison Richards, good morning to you. Allison, Michelle Cox, good morning. Corinne Dornick, good morning. Dave Durrell, good morning. Monica Faria, good morning. Vibert White, good morning. Claudia Simon is saying no, what is it? No sound. Is that correct? Are you guys hearing me? If so, let me hear. Maybe that person's phone or something like that. And I never thought that I would have been on a morning show with you guys drinking coffee, right? I want anybody else to say that they drink coffee and I'm drinking coffee now. But good morning to you guys, loud and clear. Maybe we should find out what's happening with J.R. Crawford. What do you guys think? All right, loud and clear, right? Lots of things happening. Let me just say to you guys who are watching this show this morning, if you are selling black pudding, or you're selling guinep, or you're selling mangoes, or you're selling fufu, or whatever it is, or white pudding, and because of the protest, the legitimate protest on the east coast of Demerara, if it has affected your business and during the course of the protest, somebody accidentally knocked down your stand, if you are selling dog food and the protesters or police or some wild, dotish, questionable businessman fired his gun in the air while driving, and it affected your business. Your dog food stand fell down, um, or your black pudding stand fell to the ground, or whatever, or whatever. Feel free to get up all of the damages done and take it to Irfan Ali. And also, you deserve your 1 million. You deserve your 2 million. You deserve your 3 millions, whatever it is. You deserve that as well, right? That should not only be for Polari vendors or Puri vendors or so forth. It should be across the board. And that's an interesting topic to start off with in terms of the blatant, the obvious discrimination. It is obvious, the obvious racism. We cannot run away from that, right? We cannot run away from that at all. We just cannot. The discrimination is there. The corruption is there. Look at it from this standpoint. You're selling Polari with little sour. Polari with little sour. And because of a protest, a legitimate protest, mind you, that you are going to submit an invoice for $1 million or $2 million that you have lost from selling Polari. 1 million or 2 million. We already see the corruption. We already know what is happening, right? We're not little kids. We see it. It is blatant. It is blatant. Polari and Sawa and Puri, everything, everybody's going to submit something now. And that is where the corruption is. There's something else that I want to say before, something else that I want to say. If we get this little rattlesnake off the page. Where's Lemon? Lemon, let's get this little rattlesnake off the page. Thank you. Let's try to put 2 and 2 together. And this is what has been bothering me. Now, I don't condone any sort of violence, and I don't want protesters, when people are protesting, that people sit down. And I want you guys to listen to me carefully, and I hope some folks who are of the view, and we know who those usual suspects are of the view that protesters deliberately go out to harm people. And especially when our African brothers and sisters are protesting for a justified reason, or justifiable reason, it is always this position that certain, the usual suspects in society, they take this position that the protesters are rowdy and that persons of African descent are basically out to cause trouble and all manner of things during the course of protest. But let me say this to you, right? That no protest is going to be organized with the intention of specifically going out there to harm people, to hurt people. Nobody wins in that. And I can put my 10 cents on the line that the folks from Golden Grove, and especially the family members of Mr. Bacchus, who was murdered by a member of the Guyana police force, didn't sit in their homes and plan that this is how they're going to go and be destructive. They didn't plan things like that, right? All they're seeking is justice. People are frustrated. People want justice. But what has been puzzling me, though, is that the protesters from Golden Grove, they're protesting for justice. They want justice, right? They want justice. They're seeking justice, but they left all the way from, Golden Grove. They protest, they walk, they pass all villages and all these manner of things. And do you think that they deliberately set out that they're going to go to Monrepo and do this and do that? I find it hard to believe that protesters are going to deliberately plan to do that. to go to the stalls at Monrepo Market and do those sort of things. And now, here's where it gets a bit tricky. Thank you. I know you guys like my coffee cup. Outside of, put that aside, But again, I just want to break it down for you, and let's do the math. These protesters got up in Golden Grove and say that they're going to march, they're going to protest all the way to Monrepo and just make the lives for those individuals miserable. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen like that. And that is where, for me, it is suspicious. Now, there's one guy who said that he bust bun up and all this. So you're going to stand in your yard, you're going to stand in your home, you're going to see a bunch of people, as they claim, burnt the bus, and you have a phone, you can pick up your phone, you can video these things, and all manner of things. And we're not seeing that. And for me, if I were to look at that bus, that looked like a shell bus, an empty bus. There's nothing in it. But yet 3 million, 4 million, 2 million of Guyana's taxpayers' money, taxpayers' money is going to be spent. Millions of taxpayers' money is going to be spent on so-called damages, because everybody's going to get something damaged now. And you can't blame the people, because you have a stupid government, the so-called government, a hustling government, a corrupt government, that they like that. And now I can't blame the Puri people. I can't blame them. I can't blame the Eggball lady for saying that 2 million. Everybody's going to make a hustle out of this now, because they're going to submit invoices. They're going to submit things that never missing. Cars burn up, cars broke up. They're going to submit, and they're going to get. Because if these hustlers in the regime could grab $100 million to say they are going to compensate people at Monrepo, quarter of that money would go to the people of Monrepo, and the 3/4 goes into the corrupt politicians' pockets. That is what is happening. So if Eggball lady and Potato Ball lady decide that she's going to submit an invoice for 2 million, because she sees that there's a PACU government, a corrupt government. And if they want to believe that a lady selling egg balls and little puri has lost $2 million, I don't know. I don't know. I just, I've seen some folks texting me while I'm on the air. I can't read the text while I'm on air. Sorry. And I noticed some of your comments. It is buying votes. It is a form of corruption, because who is going to audit the money? Where are they getting the money from to suddenly just give back and quote unquote compensate? I don't know. It's not adding up for me, right? But on the other side of the coin, the police trample on the rights of villagers, Golden Grove, Buxton, and other areas, damage people's properties, destroy their goods, businesses destroyed as a result of police illegal actions. Who is going to compensate? Who is going to compensate those people in Buxton and those people in Golden Grove? Because Golden Grove and Buxton and other villages also have egg balls, people who sell egg balls, people who sell plantain chips, people who sell black pudding and white pudding. But the question is, who is going to compensate them for their damages? A little boy was injured as a result of illegal police actions. Who will be compensating those individuals? Or is it that they're not human beings? They're not worthy of being compensated. And so only one set of people can be compensated immediately. In less than 24 hours, you rush out to compensate those folks. But the other set of people are not worthy of compensation. All they get is condemnation. All manner of derogatory remarks hauled against persons of African descent. We are seeing it. It is obvious as to what is happening, right? But yet we can't talk. We've got to remain quiet. And those of us who speak out and expose these sort of things happening in Guyana, right, we're being described as all sort of things. But that to me is like throwing water on ducks' back. So you have Irfan Ali, who goes into Monrepo, speaks a different language as though he's talking to human beings. And then he goes into Buxton and want to lecture people, dictate to people, and they should this and they should that. All these things, the evidence is clear. These are not things that I'm coming here to make up. There's no reason for me to make up these things. You guys are seeing it. You're hearing it for yourselves. And then the audacity of Irfan Ali to go into Buxton and to try to, at his so-called impromptu meeting, where he was very disrespectful to the residents there, turn to one man who was born and raised and is a leader in Buxton, is to ask that man, or ask, what is he doing here? Now, somebody that is born Buxtonian, raised up in Buxton, fight for Buxtonians, nothing that Irfan Ali could ever dream of doing, is going to turn and ask, what is that person, referring to David Hines, of course, what is that person doing here? Now, if Irfan Ali is watching this program, this is, who the hell are you to ask such a question? It should have been, what were you doing there? Because in my opinion, you should not be welcome under the situation, under those conditions. You should not be welcome because you weren't doing anything to heal the process on the east coast of Demerara. You were fueling it more. In other words, you became the instigator. And that's how I'm reading it to it. And we must not buy in to what the crap these guys are doing and try to lecture us and dictate to us. And because we don't subscribe to what they are saying, then we become the bad guys. But if I had my way, though, I will exact this very thing that Jack Deo encouraged his supporters to do. I would have done it because now is not the time to listen to Irfan Ali. It's not the time. The discrimination is too obvious and it's rampant. And if I have my way, this is how I will treat Irfan Ali and others in the PPP. And now, mind you, it's not something that I woke up and decided that I want to, or how I want to treat these people. I'm going to take the advice of this guy when it comes to treating them now, because the table has turned.
Right across Guyana, when the ministers of Granger or Nagamutu come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal. Free up the country, you're undemocratic. They're going to face a different situation right across the country.
When they come to the communities, whether it is in Berbice or Essecubo and Linden or in South Georgetown or Agricola or in Emnor or Port Morant, the people of Guyana should treat them as illegal. I said they should walk behind them, chase them out of your communities because it means they've been squatting in power.
His words, his encouragement. And now nothing is wrong with taking one or two advice from folks. And in this situation, I'd like to say the shoes are on the other side of the foot. And you should do the same thing that Jack Dale encouraged his supporters to do. And all of his supporters, or most of his supporters, found that to be acceptable form of protest. And nothing is wrong with if Irfan Ali or Jack Dale or whomever, they go into your community because they're not spreading love and peace. You have every right to chase them out. because they are illegal. Here is what makes them illegal. They're in office under questionable circumstances, right? Good. There are 2 elections petitions. They don't want the elections petitions to be heard for obvious reasons. They were the ones who were calling for elections petitions. Now they got the elections petitions and they're fighting tooth and nail every single time it pops up in court to cover it down. They don't want it to be heard because they know, and as much as they run around the place, parading around, calling about SOPs, it's just a public gimmick. They know that once the elections petitions start, that the SOPs of all of the parties will have to be submitted. And the world, all of us will get to see and hear what are some of the things in those SOPs. And I'm waiting to hear and see what is in the PPP's SOPs. Don't think that the PPP SOPs is like all righteous, right? No, it's not. The PPP knows that. I want to see what are in those SOPs. I want to see what's in the coalition's SOPs too. Let us not run away from that. The only person that's running away from that is the PPP. In her own words, this is what a quote-unquote pastor said. She stopped short of naming the PPP as the party that gave her SOPs that differed from what they had. The numbers were different. Hopefully she will be testifying at the so-called fake commission of inquiry. I'll talk a little bit about that shortly, but just to remind you what this woman said.
It means that we would not have gotten the statements of poll for every polling station. To be honest, the People's Republic Party have only a handful of statements of poll. The people who will have statements of poll for all the polling stations would be the large parties, which would be the coalition and the PPPC, because they would have been able to send scrutineers to all the polling stations. So let me say that that verification process that we are hoping GCOM will have to return to complete will be largely between the coalition, that is the SOPs that the coalition has, and the SOPs that the PPPC has. Because the small parties only have a smattering of SOPs. Now, having said that, let me let you know that we small parties were given handouts with collated versions of the SOPs. We were very kindly given, because when we said, well, we didn't have scrutineers at all the stations, I can tell you that one of the big parties very kindly offered us copies of a handout that had collated the results from the SOPs. Now, let me tell you, in the spirit of transparency, that as the presidential candidate for the PRP, I had a look at those results. It wasn't an in-depth look, because our election agent has that collated copy that we got from one of the big parties in her possession. But I can tell you this much. When I had a look at it, I was surprised, because I saw results on it that did not bear out the results that I had from the smattering of SOPs that we collected at the polling stations where we had scrutineers.
Oh, sorry. Watching, listening. You heard it for yourselves. You heard it. Different. And I hope she will be a witness in that fake commission of inquiry. And so that is why the PPP is afraid of the elections petitions, right? They're afraid of the elections petitions because they know in the elections petitions, all of the SOPs by the contesting parties will have to be submitted, including the coalition. Of course, the two major groupings, the PPP and the coalition, all of the SOPs are already there. So when you see they get a little paku running around disguising as journalist and questioning Aubrey Norton, the leader of the opposition, to bring where your SOP. It's come on, it's the stupidest thing that I've ever heard, right? Aubrey was right to tell him he can bring it when Jagde is ready to debate. He can bring it. Make them a paku, Aubrey. Make them a paku. And that is exactly what Aubrey Norton has done. Made them a paku because they have no shame in every single time asking about SOPs. Where is the SOPs? Where is the SOPs? Like, gosh, like we're that silly. Like we don't know what's going on, right? We know what's happening. There's no SOPs that they want to see. We want to see the PPP's SOPs, don't you guys? Don't you guys want to see what's in the PPP's SOPs, right? Some of the trench crappos are going to jump out of there. Now is the rum shop time. Somebody open the rum shop thing again. And all the rum shop dwellers, some of them running up, talking, all man of them, right? Anthony Brown, good morning to you, right? So the SOPs for me, it doesn't make sense what the PPP is saying, but it is obvious what they're doing. What they're doing is essentially, attempting to brainwash the population and to let you think that they are all angels in the PPP, right? And that their SOPs are okay. No, their SOPs are not okay. I want to see their SOPs. Don't you guys? Seriously, don't you guys want to see their SOPs? We all do. But the truth of the matter is the PPP is not going to show their SOPs. They're just not going to show their SOPs at all because they are afraid to let the world see what's in the SOPs. The reason why is, of course, you already know that we have a questionable regime. A regime that is in office because of corruption, because of big oil companies that want a regime that is as corrupt as the PPP, evil as the PPP, to be in office. Because these oil companies, let's break it down, they're not concerned about you and your development and your kids going to school and proper roads, infrastructures, and so on. They're not concerned about that. Their position is profit, how to make money, how to milk money. They're not concerned about governance. They're not concerned about a proper democracy and whether there's democracy on the ground. That they're not concerned about that. Do not expect these oil companies to care about you. They are concerned about the profits they can make and the billions of dollars they can make and go home to the comfort of their homes, and they're happy. So if they can buy into politicians who are corrupt, and most of them are in the PPP, corrupt, if they can find a way to ensure that a corrupt party gets into office, as is the case in the PPP, they will go all out to do that. And in the 2020 elections, that's precisely what happened. Don't be fooled. It's precisely what happened. Nothing else. But The PPP doesn't want that to be made public. Their SOPs, they don't want their SOPs. I would give the PPP. They say that, well, they can't say that they don't get time. We offer them time right here. There are several things you're offering them time for. What's his name? Aubrey Norton, the leader of the opposition, wants to debate Jack Dale. We give them the world of time right here on 107.1 FM. If Jack Dale and Irfan Ali, the PPP, if they want to sit right here on 107.1 FM and show us, show the world, show all of Guyana their SOPs, then they will get the world of time. They can get the entire half day. They can get an entire day to show their SOPs. We will give them that time, free of cost. Show your SOPs, Jack Dale. Show your SOPs, Irfan Ali, and let us put everything to rest. Let us put everything to rest. And once they show their SOPs, I will call on the coalition to present we'll make this the people's court, mind you. Show, but Jack Dale, they got to show their SOPs first. They're not going to do it. Don't be fooled. They're not going to show their SOPs. They are afraid to show their SOPs. They know what is inside of those SOPs. And so poor Mingo, right? Old man Mingo. I don't say old in any bad way, but Mingo now get caught in this trap. Mingo was the RO, the returning officer for Region 5, I believe. It was the PPP who agreed that Mingo should be the RO for Region 4. They agreed to that. And again, I'm saying this whole plan was well sorted out, right? They knew what they were doing. And thank you, Lemon, for putting this photograph here on the screen. And I want to break it down for you guys again. They claim that there's these folks did whatever they did, allegations, and they're being persecuted, political persecution against these individuals. They suddenly don't like Mr. Lowenfield, who is the chief elections officer. But they liked him when he was the deputy chief elections officer under Gokul Budu. They liked him then. He was a good guy then. He was honest then. But because he refused to play along with the corruption that they probably had in mind for the 2020 elections, they don't like him now. He's bad. And so they trumped up charges of electoral malpractice or whatever towards Mr. Lowenfield. Fake. They can't prove it, right? They can't prove it. Roxanne Myers, they had it in for her because they felt that she should not have been the deputy CEO, the deputy chief elections officer. That's what they believe, and they had it in. So there's nothing of substance, no evidence on no election fraud by these people. No, at least I have not seen any evidence of such, right? This guy, Mingo, now is now the boogeyman. Why am I saying that he's the boogeyman? Hear me out, please. We're in court right now. This is the people's court, right? Hear me out. As the Trinese would say, all you hear me out. All you hear me out. All you hear me out. Here's why Mingo is the boogeyman. And this was well planned. On this day, on the very day, all of them, the PPP vagabonds, they were at the headquarters of GCOM targeting Mingo. They were targeting the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, breaking down the door, shaking down the door, all manner of things, people who should not have had any access. But they were going after her. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if something ill would have happened to Claudette Singh. I would not have been surprised at all, because these people were vicious. And so the boogeyman became Mingo. Some diplomats were part and parcel of this. They were in areas where they should not have been. And in any other country, they would have been asked to leave with immediate effect because it is direct interference in a country's electoral affairs, political affairs. Direct interference. We've seen it, we've heard it, and it was unacceptable. But some of them are still there. Some of them are still there. Some of them claim that they saw Mingo change up figures. Of course, it was all set. They knew what the script was. They knew they were all reading from the same script, the very script they were reading from. One script, and that script was that Mingo did something with the numbers. Mingo did this. Mingo did that. That is what they were saying. Mingo and the numbers. Okay. If they're saying Mingo did something wrong, again, I want to ask you guys this question. And they have charged Mr. Mingo, they charged Ms. Myers, they charged Mr. Lowenfield. It's over 2 years now. If they charge and they claim that they have evidence, why? And here's a question I'm asking you guys, and I want you guys to understand. Maybe the trench crappers wouldn't understand, but I want you guys to understand. And I know you do as well. It's over 2 years now. They claim they have all the evidence against these people, that they did something wrong. Why every time when they go to court, these people go to court, the state is not ready for the case? They're not ready. They keep adjourning. There's a reason why they keep adjourning these cases. And you know what that reason is, right? It is pretty obvious by now that they have no evidence against these people. None whatsoever. At least I haven't seen or heard of any. And so have you. And so it is for that reason we have to conclude that they have no evidence against these accused. None. And that these persons are being persecuted by the PPP. Persecuted as a result of their ethnicity and as a result of their perceived political affiliation. That is why they are being persecuted. And of course, to go along with the script that they were all given. They all have to play along with that script, right? Just like Claudette Singh. Claudette Singh wasn't about that script. She was on the right track, doing the right thing to ensure that there were transparency. But when she was given that script belatedly, she had to go along with that script. She had to. She was fearful for her life. And this, mind you, this is not propaganda. Claudette knows, I know, and we'll leave it as that. She was fearful. She knew she was targeted by some drug lords. She knew she was targeted by some money launderers. She knew it. It's a fact. She knew it. If ever there is a legitimate commission of inquiry done by an independent agency outside of Guyana, not by Jack Deo and Irfan and them handpicking somebody, a lot of things will come out that transpired during the course of the 2020 elections. And it's going to shock a lot of you. Hence my reason for saying that don't let the PPP fool you guys about the 2020 elections. Don't let the PPP fool you guys. Because I'm telling you guys this. Claudette Singh was forced to play along with the script given to her. She had no other choice. The threats were too much, way too much. Again, I wish to reiterate, I'm not here about propaganda. I'm not here to spread propaganda. I'm not here to talk lies. If I am saying something to you, I'm putting her back out here. I am saying to you that she was fearful. I am saying to you that she was given a script. I am saying to you that she made a decision to go along with the script given to her because she was afraid that they were going to kill her. You guys got to look at my face again. I wouldn't say something unless there is no evidence. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put her up like this and say that she was given a script and she went along with that script. But that script was totally contrary to the actual decision that she knew that was in the best interest of free and fair elections, transparent elections, and she knew that the coalition had won the March 20th general and regional elections. So don't be fooled by Jack Dio and Irfan and their call about statements of polls. Don't believe them in that crap. Don't believe them. Okay? Just don't believe them on that. I don't believe them, and I know the majority of you don't believe them, because the truth of the matter is the elections were rigged in favor of the PPP, obviously in favor of the PPP. What else can we quickly? Let's remind you guys about this. It's not going away. It's not. I have some other things I want to talk to you guys about. This is not going away, and let's remind Jack Dio of it.
Source. Okay, well, maybe the Chinese company that did not get the agreement that they wanted here, maybe they're the ones who told you, or it could be just a fictitious thing.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Jerome?
So my relationship? Nothing. He's a tenant in my place. Yeah.
And he's a good friend of yours?
Yes. Yes. He is a friend of ours. His father was here from many years ago.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he lives next door to you.
Yes.
You know, he was able to arrange meetings and catch-ups with you at any point in the day. He claims
as a friend, yeah.
He claims that through his very close relationship with you, he's able to get any deal done.
Well, I don't know
and
if that's
able to change laws for investors.
But then which law has been changed for any investor?
So Sue told us that if you want to get anything done in Guyana, you need some hookups. I'm very close with the Vice President and the other officials. The Vice President and I share a very close relationship. Also, if we do the business, he'll help.
We just remove that, remove him. We already know what's happening, right? And you cannot sit in your community and our communities and accept these guys. You got to give them the medicine that they say that they are going to give to you. Chase them out, right? Nothing is wrong with that. Let's head over to the PNC headquarters. Thank you so much, Lemon. We have the leader of the opposition is making a statement. So we'll head over to Congress Place now, but I'll still be here with you guys.
Excessive and callous use of force and unnecessarily injuring and terrorizing citizens, it is also ineffective and even counterproductive. The Ghana Police Force must use modern crowd control equipment and techniques to ensure demonstrations remain peaceful and lawful. 4, as we stated Tuesday last, while we reaffirmed the right of citizens to engage in peaceful protest in their fight for justice, liberty, and equality, We condemn all acts of violence and criminality. Such acts only serve to undermine and distract from the legitimate aims of the protest actions. Many of these marauders or looters are directed by the PPP and their political agents with the aim of damaging the legitimacy of the protests. The police must be preemptive and strategic in thwarting their efforts. We support the decision to compensate all who are affected by the acts of banditry at Monrepo and other places for their loss of property and business assets. We also call on the government to compensate those people who had their property shut up by the Guyana Police Force and those vendors who policemen drank out their drinks and other beverages in Golden Grove. They need compensation as well, if it is one Guyana. We take this opportunity to call on the government to also assist the persons with a monetary resettlement grant whose roadside business stalls it intends to bulldoze, though we prefer them to not be bulldozed. It is unfortunate the government is returning to the ropes and bend fail approach. Lastly, all Guyanese must condemn the threat to the president's life regardless of the circumstances and urge the government to act to ensure all Guyanese can live free from fear, including the opposition. 2. Jagdeo and the PPP have broken the social contract with the Guyanese people. The Sugate bribery and corruption allegations encircling VP Jagdeo and other ministers are by themselves matters of crisis proportions. We and others have rightly called for a full independent investigation and to allow the law to take its course. However, the Sugate affair has also raised another crisis of similar proportion. The crisis concerns the huge loss of public trust and confidence in VP Jagdeo as a member of the government. His continued role as puppet master in the Ali administration undermines the social contract between government and the Guyanese citizens. Social contracts govern several relations in a society, including, most importantly, between the people and their government. It defines what is expected from the government by the people. It establishes the legitimacy of authority and the state over the people. It expresses the general will of people, their collective interests, and provides the basis for ensuring the general welfare of the people. A social contract enables the rule of law. It is what keeps society from destabilizing and disintegrating. When those entrusted to govern break the contract through corruption, incompetence, discrimination, and lawlessness, society faces a crisis. When those entrusted to govern break the contract by no longer seeking consensus, society faces a crisis. When those entrusted to govern break the contract through careless power grabbing, society faces a crisis. When those who govern have to use force, the society faces a crisis. That is the crisis situation we find ourselves in Guyana today under Jagdeo and the PPP. The revelations in Vice News features have caused the public to no longer trust any major transaction or agreements by the government, especially those in which VP Jagdeo played a part, whether from the office or from his living room, whether with sue or without sue. The social contract in Guyana today lies in ruins under the PPP. To restore the public trust as part of the social contract, governments or ministers normally resign. It is in that context, too, we call on VP Jagdeo to step down. Jagdeo must go. For the PPP to pretend that the public confidence in its integrity and decency has not now dissipated is a classic case of the ostrich burying its head in the sand. Tighter rules required for auctioning of oil blocks. Many Guyanese were legitimately alarmed when they heard Sue say in the Vice documentary, and I quote, "Other amounts of money before this has been much bigger, like the oil company." Sue's allegation that bribes were paid in connection with an oil contract raises a series of questions, in particular, whether the upcoming auction of oil blocks in Guyana is a sham, with winners already chosen because they have already paid the so-called consultation fees to government ministers. Our national assets, worth billions of US, are now going not to the highest bidder, but the highest briber. Guyanese must recall that this is not the first time that we have seen the award of blocks under the PPP mired in controversy. That prompted public outcry, investigations, and led to lawsuits. This dark cloud of suspicion, which now hovers over the proposed auction of Guyana's remaining oil blocks, will not dissipate until an impartial investigation has taken place. There should be no auction without an investigation into these claims, as well as the implementation of several measures to improve transparency and accountability during this process. At minimum, the auction of national oil blocks must include: 1, clear criteria as to the minimum requirements any applicant must satisfy. 2, extensive due diligence to ensure each applicant meets the minimum requirements. 3, clear criteria as to how winning bidders will be selected. 4, if multiple rounds of bidding take place, clear rules as to how this will occur. 5, a period of national consultation to determine if the rules and criteria laid out are appropriate and acceptable to the Guyanese people. We reiterate our call for civil society and the international community to join the push for an impartial investigation into the numerous allegations of bribery in the wake of the Vice News documentary. We reiterate our call for him to step aside or be fired in order to facilitate such an investigation. This is not a light matter. Tens of billions of US dollars of our people's money are on the line. It is not Jack Dew's money. It is not the government's money. It is the people's money. No oil block auction should take place under the present corrupt circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Leader. At this time, I will take questions on the statement from members of the media, and as customary, you will show by the raise of hand and state your name and media house. I see the hand of Mr. Adam Harris. You can go ahead and mute your mic.
Good morning,
mute your mic. Sorry.
An interesting development. 24 hours or so after the people of Monaco claimed that they were attacked and they lost so much, the government began to make compensation without even an assessment of the extent of the loss. How can you explain this?
First of all, I believe that what occurred is as a result of PPP's actions. This is not the first time. Once there is protest, the PPP has the tendency to place within the protests agents provocateurs who end up in that direction. In previous protests years ago, we had the task of identifying many of them and putting them in the hands of the police, though nothing will become of them once they know they are agents provocateurs of the PPP. And so you would note, though I believe in protests, we were doing a lot of work to be able to ensure that when protests occurs, there are mechanisms. When protests occur, there are mechanisms to deal with it. Now, in this case, what in essence happened is the police action itself generated problems. Like we said in the statement, they need to have more modern methods and proper methods of dealing with control. Having said that, the People's Progressive Party has adopted a policy of distributing this nation resources without mechanisms for accountability and transparency. And so it is in keeping with what the PPP does. I don't think the PPP is interested in assessing losses, in ensuring that the people who get are the people who should get. The PPP make the position that once they perceive it's their supporters, they will just issue money. And that explains a lot of what the PPP is doing. Let us not forget, it's not only in this case they're doing it, it has become a policy of the government that where they believe there is opportunity for them to develop some popularity, they will dole out the nation's money and hope to gain political advantage from it. While we believe that there is need for a structured system to ensure resources meet our people, we are fully well aware that the PPP like this approach because it allows for squandermania and corruption. And if you didn't do a proper inventory of the people who are affected and how much it would have cost them, and then you just go and dole out money, at the end of the day, you can say, well, we spent 40 million when we spent 2 or 3, and the PPP elite will enjoy itself on corruption money. That approach of corrupt activity, that approach has become interwoven into the fabric of the PPP mode of operation. And so I just see it as one, yes, people need to be compensated, but 2, every time opportunities for compensation emerge, the PPP uses it as an opportunity for corruption.
Thank
Then,
you.
sir, sorry, is there any way that this could be investigated at the level of the National Assembly, for example? Is there any forum available to the opposition to check these expenditures, to monitor these expenditures? This money turns up. What is the source of this money? Did it come from the public treasury? I don't know, so I'm asking.
Well, there are mechanisms. Questions could be asked in Parliament. When the time comes and it comes before the Public Accounts Committee, it could be scrutinized. But you know they are doing everything to ensure that their accounts are not scrutinized by the Public Accounts Committee. We anticipate when it comes to those, the ministers wouldn't turn up. Remember, they changed the law to ensure that they must be present. And so there are avenues, but in the final analysis, it will take some time. You will have to ask questions and then get answers and move forward. And like I said, the Public Accounts Committee could be one area that is utilized.
Thank you. Any other questions on the press statement?
Yes, I would like to ask. You called for compensation for the people at Golden Grove, sir. What is the likelihood of those people being compensated for whatever loss or damage they suffered?
If we judge from the historical practice of the Ali regime, there's little or no hope. The PPP seems to only believe that they should focus on those who they perceive to be their supporters. I was at Golden Grove last night, and you saw that they shot up at one shop, and you notice not only pellets, that they use live round when you see it. I think we took some pictures. Vendors complained that the police haven't fired at them and ting them. The policemen then took their cards, carried away their drinks, had a spree on those activities. And that is why in the press statement, we call for the people there to be compensated, because a number of people, one shop in the market, they shut and broke up the windows. And so what the police did was to spread mayhem. And then they begin to occupy the village. Let us recall that since the police went in to quell the protests at Dartmouth, they have not moved out of Dartmouth. They are still there. The other thing that needs to be questioned, and I am going to look at it in the law, I do not know that the army needs to be present when these activities are occurring. I see the presence of the army as an attempt to intimidate. And so one has to be to look very carefully at what the PPP is doing. One would have thought that the police force has the capabilities to deal with these issues. And as I understand the law, only if the police declare that they do not have the capacity to deal with it, then they will withdraw and then the army will come. But we are seeing state repression. The police is bringing the army out to intimidate people. And this becomes easy at this stage because the acting head of the army previously, and we note this in the statement, there were serious allegations of torture made against him. There were serious allegations that he was in collusion with the People's Progressive Party. And I believe those alone should disqualify him from acting as the head of the Guyana Defense Force. The politicization of the police force and the Guyana Defense Force cannot be something that is welcome in this society. And so the behavior is a reflection of what is encouraged by the PPP. Let us see what is encouraged. When the Harris Singh and Henry Boyce case emerged, the PPP didn't proceed to investigate it thoroughly and properly. They were doing everything to affect the investigation. And even when foreigners came to help, they did everything to not assist the delegation. And then many people in the society are of the view that the people they placed before the court were not the people who were involved. And so you will have a kind of a kangaroo type court dealing with that case. Then we come to the Boston case, where they had made all kinds of pronouncement that the man had a weapon, etc. It turned out that the man was shot in his bed. They did everything to quell the protests, and until like today, this matter is not heard and will not be heard in a hurry, knowing the PPP's approach. We come now to the Bacchus case, and we see the first thing they said was a complete lie. Video and other evidence suggested that the young man was pursued and executed. Now, in this case, they know who was the executioner. Explain to us then why, if a man is murdered, you are going to put it in the police complaints authority or some other agency. This is a criminal matter that should be investigated as murder. Had it been any other body, or somebody who is not linked to the PPP regime, or carries out the dirty work of the PPP, or is covered by the lawlessness of the PPP, that person would have been in prison. But we see the man having a nice time, lying in good comfort, while the family of Bacchus would like to have justice. And so it is the actions and the operations of the People's Progressive Party and the police force they control, that those are the actions that are creating the problems we have in the society. And so the people in this country anticipated that they're going down the same road as they went before, and that, among other things, resulted in the protest. There's little or no hope that these matters will be dealt with in keeping with law.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take questions outside of the statement if the media has any.
Mr. Norton, you were recently in the United States. Would you care to share some of the details of that visit?
Well, basically, the visit was more or less restricted to me working with our support base around the United States. Essentially, that was it. We engaged in 2 states in the United States with business people, with people who support the APNU, AFC, and the PNC, and with the membership of the PNC in the diaspora. What was concerning was the reports that the PPP now have in the United States, at least one member of the Guyana Defense Force who is monitoring Guyanese there and operating in a way that suggests the government is not now only spying on us in Guyana, but they have gone outside of the jurisdiction to spy on our people. Clearly, a police state is emerging here, and they seem to be setting up arms of it in jurisdictions where Guyanese people are active and believe that the government is an improper government practicing bad governance.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, sorry. You can tell me a little more about this person or faction that is doing this spying, sir. What is his modus operandi? How is he going about this?
Well, people in the United States have observed that he's always present at their activity. He's always seeking to get information, and even in places that he shouldn't be, he turns up, and many of them have confirmed that he's on the payroll of the Guyana Defense Force, and therefore it is obvious to them that he's not just a visitor of ordinary standing. He is part of the spy network that the PPP would have set up. In fact, there are those who believe it's more than one, and the process has begun to identify others who are involved.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Good morning, Mr. Norton, from the South News. About your visit to the US, a few weeks or days ago, there was a letter in the newspaper suggesting that you would have met with officials from Exxon Mobil on one of your visits in the US. I'm just trying to see if that is true, and if it is, so what was the meeting about?
First of all, I've answered this question before, and I'll answer it again. No, I didn't.
Thank you.
No.
You have a follow-up? Okay. Any other questions?
All right, here's what's going to happen. There's a press conference. The leader
All right, I don't see any.
The leader of the opposition, his press conference. At least we give you guys a bit of what's happening there, and at least you get the live and direct from the leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton, who is back in Guyana. And we're glad that Aubrey Norton, the leader of the opposition, is back in Guyana, and we should be able to welcome him back in Guyana. He's needed there on the ground, and we're glad that he's back there. On with us is our no strangers. We have Mr. J.R. Crawford, all the way there in Alnis Village. And then we have Dr. Joker. I don't know why he calls you, or he thinks that it's okay to call you a joker, David, but a lot of people are upset about describing you as a joker in your own village, a village that you were born, you grew up in, you do so much for, you offer real leadership to your people, but yet we're not surprised the likes of Irfan Ali describing you as a joker. We find that to be offensive. One, we find it to be racist. I'm not sure Dr. Hines is hearing me. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm not sure why he thinks it is okay to describe you as a joker. And this is not the first time you're seeing and hearing these things. You're being described as Black Pudding Man by Freddie Kisu. Now you're being described as a joker in a village where you were born and raised, and where the people have tremendous amount of respect to you. That somebody like Irfan Ali, a no good, could hop into a village and describe you, someone like you, as a joker. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on with us this morning. That description was obviously directed at you, Dr. David Hines. Explain what transpired.
Well, you know, sometimes I really don't want to pay much attention to certain things. Listen, Irfan Ali was in Buxton with his friends at a corner shop. He probably was taking a drink. People think he visited the village or he was invited into the village. No, he was not. He was there with some of his little friends at the corner as I was passing, and I was asking the people who was there. They said he was there. I said, well, you all have an esteemed visitor. You heard my voice, and he asked, who is that joker? I was about to answer him when the security ushered me away. And so that is what transpired. I really do not I really do not put much store on that exchange, if there was an exchange at all. But I suppose people felt it was offensive. What's new? He's an offensive little boy, and it's expected that that kind of stuff will come from him. What he did was to demean the presidency. If that's what the presidency has become, that you go at the corner shop and you see somebody pass and say, "Hi, Joker." Well, that's what we have become in Guyana, and I think that's the story. It is not that he called me a joker. People know I am not a joker. I know I'm not a joker, right? It is the demeaning of the presidency. That is the story here. You know, here is a little boy who can barely string some sentences together. I have so much sympathy for that boy because he is being pushed into a position that he's so unfit for. You know, I wanted to ask him if he can spell joker, but I didn't want to embarrass him further. You know, this is a person that can't talk properly, can't string some sentences together. And when he strings sentences together, they don't connect. You know, he's such an unintelligent little boy, you know, and he has demeaned the presidency. You know, Guyana, for whatever you can say about us, we have produced political leaders, people who have assumed the presidency, who have dignified that office. You know, I have had my problems with Mr. Granger, but he dignified the office. And there's this little short-tailed boy, you know, who has brought down the dignity of the office. And I think that's the news here.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Dr. David Hines. He has brought down the decency of the office. And we see this oftentimes when the PPP is in office. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But this little boy, this thing, you're right, he cannot construct a proper sentence. Yet he has the audacity to step into your village where you belong and asking, what are you doing there? Obviously, that is offended, but his support base wouldn't see it that way because they can't think further than that. But what exactly did you say, based on your recollection, that would cause him to look in your direction? Obviously, he knew it was you. Nobody can miss you, David. But what exactly did you say? You just inquire what is he doing there, or
I inquired who was there, and they told me that is the president, and I told them, well, look, you all have an esteemed visitor. That's all I said.
And you said that loud enough for him to hear, that little boy.
Yes.
What could have triggered him to pinpoint and address you and say this joker?
Well, he doesn't know better. He doesn't know better. It's not about addressing me, Mark. He doesn't know better. You know, when we are little boys, the parents tell me, when you use cuss word, it's because you're unintelligent, you don't got other words to use. You know, he doesn't. The young man is just an unfit person for the office of the presidency. And you listen to him all the time, right? How can you imagine Granger standing up at the street corner? And I am passing, and he said, "Hi, Joker, how you doing?" Or something like that. Can you imagine Burnham or Jagan or even Jackie, or Donald Ramatar? And he said, "No, the news here is not what he said to me. The news here, like I said, is bringing down the dignity of his office. I don't think people should respect him after this. Certainly, I will no longer address him as Mr. President anymore. And you know, my politics is never personal. I really don't get into individuals. I deal with issues. But I can no longer, I will ensure that people who listen to me disrespect him from now on, because he has disrespected the office of the presidency. He should be treated in like kind.
Exactly, and that's how it should play out. I've never addressed him any other way other than Irfan Ali, or occasionally a Mister. I give him a Mister occasionally. I wanted to go to this, let people see what this little boy is basically about, and the fact that he cannot construct a proper sentence. And then after that, we'll get into J.R. Crawford and get Crawford's take on what's happening in the country.
DPP. I'm urging the residents who are on the road to please stick to the facts. Do not be misled by any social media posting or any information that is not verified. For example, what triggered this is a news item that they
certainly can't read properly, certainly can't construct a proper sentence. So we are wondering, we already know who the joker is, and we're looking at the joker indeed. J.R. Crawford, good morning and welcome. Your take on what's happening. Your take, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
That response by Irfan to Dr. Hines was uncalled for, and it's a very disrespectful behavior. And I don't know if he didn't realize it could have triggered something a lot worse by calling someone a joker, especially that he knows Dr. Hines. And what this is showing, that behavior was the same behavior that we saw at Pegasus when they were trying to overturn Dr. Cummins' vehicle. So you're seeing that throughout the last 2 years, they're pretending to be civil when their natural behavior, is coming out every now and then. And the PPP is clearly showing that they don't have the respect for people in general. And, I thought even though they were installed, their behavior would have changed, or, the people that installed them would have taught them how to operate in public. But we're not seeing that, that level of respect and professionalism, So these guys, they can change. They can pretend, but they're exposing themselves as time go by. And I think that behavior was uncalled for to Dr. Hines.
Uncalled for, but not totally unexpected, coming from the little boy, Irfan Ali, that is. Dr. David Hines, you heard Irfan's response to what transpired on the east coast of Demerara, and the haste in which he rushed into Mon Repos and quickly compensated those individuals, egg ball, chicken foot, all manner of things. But we heard nothing from him or members of his party during the 2+ weeks when the family members and friends and villagers of Bacchus, Mr. Bacchus, who was murdered by a policeman under questionable circumstances. We heard nothing from Irfan Ali then. Your take on what he had to say in that video, assuming that you heard his so-called address to the nation.
Yes, I heard it. Mark, look, what has transpired in the last 2 years, and JR just said, these people are installed in office. And when you install a government in office and you give it an open check to do whatever it wants, you are bound to get to the stage that we are now. The PPP felt that they had so much power that they could do what they like in the country. And the contempt they have for ordinary people, the contempt they have for poor people, including poor people who voted for them, the contempt they have generally for Black people, is that they feel that they could do what they like and nothing will happen. So what? The police shoot another young Black man and it's business as usual. And it's a lack of understanding of the human spirit and how human beings operate. At some point, somebody was going to say, well, look, we are not taking this anymore. And the people of Golden Grove were out there for 2 weeks, as you said, and the government paid them no mind, but not just the government, Mark, the mainstream media. Them going to that village and talk to anybody and so on. They didn't go there and cover what those people were doing. Then the people took their protest to another level 2 days ago. And then everybody began, including Irfan Ali, began to make it about what happened at Monrepos. Listen, those people marched from Golden Grove. They passed several Indian villages. They never touched an Indian person. Indian people came out on the road and were standing at the roadside looking at them, and they passed and they went. Do not tell me that those people left the Golden Grove and said, we are going to Monrepo to go and, break up people, the Alporistal and so on. No, that was not the case. The police stopped the march. These people passed Vigilance Police Station. There were soldiers there. There were police there. They allowed them to pass. And then as they were approaching BV, they stopped them there. You have to ask, why did you not stop them at Vigilance when you had the ability, the capacity to stop them there? Why did you not stop them, as Paul Slow, a former policeman, say, by the burial ground, where there are no soft targets or anything? Why did you stop them as they were approaching BV? And the police has to answer that. It is clear that it was deliberate to stop them there, because we all know, and we've been saying that all the time, that they plant these elements in these demonstrations. And once they stopped there, all hell broke loose. And then, as if to script, within an hour or 2 hours, Irfan Ali descended there. And without any investigation or anything, we're going to compensate you. So here is the story. We plant these men in there. They come and they break up this thing so that we can make it into a racial issue. And don't worry. We're going to pay you back, and we're going to pay you back more than it costs. So that thing that they orchestrated and they performed there was deliberate. And the fact that before the end of the day, they're paying those people money shows very clearly. So the police is complicit in where they stopped the marchers. Clearly, the president knew what was happening because he was on call, ready to move. And we are yet to see the videos of these Indian Guyanese people who were beaten, who were robbed. I am waiting to see those videos because I do not condone beating people of any race. I do not condone robbing people of any race. I would be the first person to be out there saying, you're wrong, you're wrong. Where are these people who were beaten and robbed? That whole thing. Some East Indians have been saying it's a black man that has shot another black man. But here's the story that they're missing. It's a government of a race that is not black that is giving the orders here and that is in charge of the country. The struggle of those people is not against Indian people, it's against the government of the day for its neglect. The government has turned a blind eye. It didn't go into that village to hug those people and to say, look, we are going to ensure that justice is given for this young man. We are against extrajudicial killing. We have nothing to do with this. This here is a matter we will investigate. None of that happened. None of that happened. And you see, here is the news. On that night, the military and the police invaded that small village and shot those people. Live bullets, rubber bullets, went into their church, ransacked the church. It was a military operation against a small village. I'm waiting to see the media which highlighted non-repose. They did not highlight what happened later that night. People's properties, people's children were shot at, women were trampled on, and oftenly, or the media, they have not highlighted that the news for them is non-repos. It's a sad country that we're in.
Very sad indeed. Dr. David Hines, you have said what we uttered earlier on the show. And you know, we have been in lots of protests, and we know about these agents provocateur from the PPP, that they know that there is a protest and they deliberately set things up to happen so that the protesters, and as I've noticed, your good friend Ravi Dev in a letter in today's paper talk about the instigators.
Yes.
You know, it is always the instigators. They're shifting the blame game now. So you blame the instigators. You don't look at the justice that people are seeking. But look, you have mentioned that the protest started in Golden Grove, right? Passed a few predominantly in East Indian villages and so forth. Nothing happened. It was very peaceful. But why, when it reached to where? Monrepo, suddenly things happen. Suddenly. Yeah. And then now right away they blame Irfan and all of them, blame the protesters, and it is bad, and it's the instigators, and they're targeting persons of East Indian extraction and all manner of things. It's the same script that we keep seeing and hearing all the time. I have a question for you, but I'll get back to that. Mr. Crawford, your take on this whole thing about protesters beating up or burning stalls at Monrepo. Believable? Is it suspicious too?
Mark, I'm totally against destroying people's property when you're protesting. Now, this situation is something that I spoke about on this platform many times. Dr. Hines raised a very important point. The people are not upset against East Indian people. They're upset against the way the government are treating certain people, even their own East Indian people who do not subscribe to their party. So we are seeing a vindictive behavior, which one has to wonder, if you're installed, why would you come with a vindictive behavior? Treat every citizen with respect, and we would not have this problem. But you're seeing that this is more than politics. This is racism. Now, with the protests, when they stopped there at Monrepo, that's their stronghold. Like Dr. Hines said, they might have had their plan that we have total coverage there with our people, so we are going to cause a problem. Because when you have riots or race wars, it gives you the ammo to use lethal force. and they're looking for ways and means to use lethal force against people. So these things, they are capitalizing it. And if you, like I said, if you look at his behavior when he came into making a statement about David Hines is the joker, it shows, you know, a reckless behavior. Someone who is trying to, instead of controlling a situation that's gone out of control, is to explode, make it explode. So there is a reason, an ammo to move in and use lethal force. And, you know, one has to wonder what happens to the international bodies that brought these people into office. Why aren't they speaking out about the wrongdoings? Why aren't they speaking out about, you know, the discrimination that is being meted out on half of the Guyanese population? Why aren't they speaking out about people not able to voice their opinion or displeasure with the government ill-treating the masses? You know, all these are questions that we, you know, we have to ask these people that are running around in our country on our tax dollars. And, you know, the current PPP administration, if you look what went down, Irfan was pushed out alone, and the other big wigs were behind the scenes. They're not coming out. This is a total setup. And also we do have to point fingers at the Black folks that are operating as henchmen for the PPP to destroy the coalition supporters. That is also is a major problem within our society. Those are the ones that will be deemed the instigators. Those are the ones that are destroying our society. And again, I do not, you know, subscribe to destroying people's property.
And none of us should, Mr. Crawford, in terms of the instigators, and not to cut into you, we know who the real instigators are. And this guy, this little boy, pretends as though he's all about unity and nothing will stop him from unifying. It is not. Folks who are watching, this is not. Dr. Hines has been around in the political arena for too long to buy into this trickery from this guy about unity. It's not. Even some of his own supporters are getting tired of Irfan Ali's political rhetoric. This is what, before we get back to Dr. Hines, this is what some of his supporters feel. This is how they feel.
We got 2 children, 28 and 29, never get a master in the government, never a job. And all the old ministers get a job, Eccles Milling. And you go tell me to God, there's a time to pick up and pack up and go. No vote. In Bakali, no vote. No vote, no vote. And your government is suffering. In greater time, we never suffer so. The same thing. Yes, but they're going to protest peaceful and this one come broke up your market in front of all them. You go tell them, go back and vote. 5 votes lose for the house. I ain't getting a thing. School children get money, disabled get money, what I get. I be $2 where you sell 3 4 for 2 weeks now a day. You got to pay passage and pay rent. God. How much you pay for?
You know, Dr. Hines, she's saying that people were protesting peacefully and then suddenly the place broke up. I can understand where she's coming from and I agree with both you and Crawford that nobody should condone the breaking up or damage to property or beating up anybody. Nobody should condone that at all. And we don't here on 107.1 FM, right? We do not, regardless of the ethnic persuasion of the individual or individuals, we do not condone such at all. But this is oftentimes the same script that the PPP uses, that whenever there's a protest, especially primarily African Guyanese protesting, there's always some sort of agent provocateur that the PPP would put in the place to provoke a situation. It happens all the time. And we cannot rule out that, mind you, we cannot rule out that as being a possibility of what really transpired in Monrepo. As you have said, Dr. Hines, these protesters passed all of the villages, including predominantly Indian Guyanese villages, and did nothing. There were Indian brothers and sisters who came out and they were in support, waving and so forth at the peaceful protesters. But why Monrepo? Why? You've heard that lady just now. Dr. Hines, over to you.
I didn't hear the video or see the video. Sorry, with the comments, so I can't comment on it.
She was basically saying that, hey, all governments are the same, and that Irfan Ali and the PPP, all they want to do is to get votes and buy votes and so forth. And some other guy, this happened in one report in the background, saying all them government are same, all of them are same. I mean, I vote back for them. You know, that's what she was expressing, her frustration at the level of nonsense that she's seeing under the PPP regime, and the fact that she hasn't seen that under the coalition. It was nice and it was peaceful, in essence.
Yeah, well, you know, Indian people understand what's happening. I mean, they're not fools. They voted for the PPP, but they know what the PPP is doing. And so it is not unexpected to hear some of those sentiments. I heard a man on the very day there said to the journalist, he said, look, you know, they killed a man for 3 weeks, they're not charged nobody. That will start this thing. Indian people understand what is going on. What the PPP is trying to do is to say to those Indian people, they're targeting you. It's them black man a kill Matty, and you not got nothing to do. And they left and come to kill you all. And Indian people have to stand up and to say, we understand what's happening. They have a responsibility to say they understand what's happening. Look, I pleaded with Ravi Dev. I said, Ravi, come no man. Say to the people of Golden Grove that you condemn what happened. He said not a word. Not a word. And today he's out there in the paper. Look, I have respect for Ravi Dev's intellect. You know, but Ravi now has become part of that gang. He has become part of that gang. His advocacy and his activism are now morphed in with the objective of Indian domination. And that is so sad. That is so sad because he knows better. He knows better. The first time he's going to mention the boy who got killed at Golden Grove is this morning. And he's mentioning it as an afterthought. Look, the story here is a young man who was killed by an agent of the state. That is the story. The government did not go to the village in a very testy situation and say, we are joining you in seeking justice for this young man. They stayed out. Even as what was happening 2 days ago, Irfan Ali did not go to Golden Grove. He went to Monrepo. Don't worry, Buxton. He went to Buxton with copy little my friends them in Buxton. That's what he was doing there. He didn't go to Buxton to talk to anybody. Nothing was happening in Buxton. His friends call him in Buxton and say, come here, because if Buxton gets involved in this thing, it's just nasty. He got some little my friends in Buxton. And that's why he was there. He did not go to visit Buxton. We want to stress that. His intention was to visit Monrepo and then go back home until his friends, they call him at the corner of the street. But he had no intention of visiting an African community. No intention whatsoever. And what it shows is that he is not governing. They are not governing for all of the people of Guyana. And even when he was there in Buxton, the Buxtonians were covering him. He kept telling them he wants justice for the peoples whose stalls were burned. They tell him, we want justice for the boy who got killed. The boy family went to Buxton and said, all I want is justice for the family. And he kept saying, I want justice for the people's stalls who were broken. It is very clear. I mean, the fella is not even hiding it. Perhaps he doesn't have the capacity to even con people properly because it's a matter of intellect. He's challenged up there. You all know that. You all know that Orphan Ali doesn't have very much intellect and so on. We know that. And people like myself, I do not say these things in public because I could have been like him. I came from a poor background, and if I didn't go to school and I didn't pay attention what they were teaching in school, I might have ended up like him. And so sometimes I have sympathy for people like Orphan. And I always say, Orphan, when they offer you to be president, you should have said, no, I don't have the capacity to do that job. But you take it and you're making yourself a puppy show. You're making yourself, as you say, a joker. He was really talking to himself, the biggest joker in the pack. And so Guyana's become a tragedy because the person they've put to be president is the biggest tragedy ever to have held that position and to say that. And what he's doing is that he has another man on his back. He has another man on his back running the country, and he is there underneath that other man. Is who that joker? That is what he has reduced. You know, and it's really, really, really sad. And I think our country should disrespect him from now. You know, everywhere he goes, we should show him scant respect. We should disrespect him because he has disrespected the highest office of this land and, by extension, disrespected this country.
All right, Dr. David Hines with us. Some of these stuff is echoing a little bit at their end. We have no stranger, a lot of famous people on the show this morning, including Apostle Nigel London is with us. But before we welcome Apostle Nigel London, Ravi Dev is attempting to say that apparently, you know, when an Indian person is being wronged by the police, that maybe folks like us don't say anything. Let me just correct Ravi Dev. I will try to get in touch with Ravi Dev. This is back in 2014. Top cop promises full probe into beating to death of fisherman at Lenora Station. And this is a case that I was personally involved in. I arranged a protest in front of the police station. Silal Prasad met with a group of us inside, or maybe it was Bromel, one of them, and they promised a full-fledged investigation. And from 2014 to now, there was nothing. Every single day, there were folks like me, especially at Metamazar, meeting with the family members, organizing so that they can get justice. So I'm not sure that Ravi Dev is accurate with that. And then there was another guy by the name of Shafiq, I recall, who died under questionable circumstances at the Brigdam police lockups back in 2002. I didn't see or hear a Ravi Dev there. I didn't see or hear a Ravi Dev at the 2014 questionable killing of that, or death of that police, that fisherman at the station. I didn't see Ravi Dev when that little boy was killed by a police. I think he attended a secondary school over far from Lagrange. David Hines, you were there as well. When a truck driver was charged, an Indo-Guyanese truck driver was charged. I didn't see these guys like Ravi Dev and them calling and talking about justice. They were never there. And that's a fact. I know because I was there on the ground with most of these folks, organizing protests with them, taking them in front of police stations and so forth. I was there. I didn't see Ravi Dev when we were there at iFlat Estate, David, protesting for sugar workers and so forth and so on. These guys got to stop with their selective memories and painting a picture as though we only stand up for African Guyanese when there is injustice or injustices meted out to them. It is not true, because the evidence is there to suggest and to show that it is just not true. But folks like Ravi Dev have to start standing up on the side of African Guyanese when injustice is meted out to them. Do we see that? Do we hear that from Ravi Dev and others? No, we do not. Apostle London, welcome to the show, sir. Good morning.
Greetings and thank you for having me, and to the other panelists, of course. It's a joy to be here to share this moment with all of you, and to those who are listening via radio and viewing via Facebook. Good to be here.
Nice to have you here. Quickly, what's happening, and what's your take on Irfan Ali's position and rushing to compensate individuals who were supposedly, they got damages, Puri style, but knocked down, and Hassa stand knocked down, and they're getting 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. It is not going to end at all. What is your take on that, sir?
I am most disheartened by it. I'm quite upset. I spoke to that this morning on a private broadcast, that it's obvious that this is not one Guyana that Irfan Ali is peddling. It's a Guyana for one, for one group of people. There is no way that you can have a situation as volatile as this, and one who sits in the seat of president decides that in response to people from Monrepo saying that they had losses, within hours he was there to make promises. The state funds, he committed without being finance minister or anything. He just made a commitment that this is going to be happening. They have money. And what is worse is the fact that persons were allowed to call whatever figure they apparently wanted to call, and they received it. In my view, those who are condemning the looting and who are condemning the theft of groceries and so on from Monrepo has to condemn the vendors who say that Puri and Pilori white pudding is worth $3 million. You cannot honor a thief and dishonor another one. They're all criminals, if you ask me, if we want to put it in that bracket. Because to rob the state is a criminal act. And worst, I should say, is the fact that there are persons in Golden Grove who would have suffered losses too. Their shops were destroyed. There's a pastor who I spoke with this morning, and I would have him live pretty soon. He was not even allowed to go to see the building that has been ransacked, and where you have live rounds and or shells and so on in that building. He was not allowed when he said to them, "I'm a preacher. I would like to go to the building." He wasn't allowed to go there. However, he was told now that he has to go to vigilance along with the other vendor from Golden Grove. They must go to Vigilance Police Station to say or file a report about the destruction. Why didn't Ali send those from Monrepo to Sparendam or Triumph, wherever it is, to say, okay then, file a report about what you lost? This is unfortunate and it's unsurprising. I do not put anything better in the hands of Irfan Ali because I expect nothing better from him.
Absolutely nothing better from him. He is not about unifying Guyana. We all know that. He is causing problems throughout the country. Everywhere he goes, there is problem, but he has this pretense, as though he's about peace. So you go to Monrepo and you talk nicely to the people because you see that he is going to gain political mileage from that, and they're going to hustle the money. Millions of dollars, like you said. Puri and these sort of things, millions of dollars, I don't know. Then he goes into Buxton to lecture people, to disrespect people, but yet he cannot pick the phone up to call the family members of Mr. Bacchus at all. Mr. Crawford, what's the mood like on the quarantine when the protest was happening out there? What are folks saying on the quarantine?
Well, a couple of folks, they wanted it, and there were some who was kind of worried if this would have had, a negative effect across the country, because as much as folks wants to protest, they know it's going to end up being a violent situation. And I don't think that the majority of the Guyanese wants to hurt each other, because we all know it's the government that's the problem, not the general masses. Yes, there are some that are totally foolish, but again, we have to be very careful on how we operate and become violent, and innocent people will get hurt. I've been saying this on this program. Because of the behavior of the government, many innocent people are going to get hurt on both sides. Because once a group of people get angry, it's not easy to control them. Reasoning goes out the window. And we, as leaders, have to be very careful how we operate on that thin line. Yes, we must make our voices heard, but at the same time, we have to be careful not to go over into being a mob. And I've said it years and years now. This PPP behavior is going to cause bloodshed in this country. We may not want it, but it will happen because they're showing total disregard for the citizens, even their own supporters. They're putting at risk to gain political mileage. And it's a dangerous game. And as soon as, soon as the PPP supporters, get to realize that they are being used and stop this nonsense and cursing people about hungry bellies and black dogs and all these things, they will understand that we are all in it together. It's not just one set of people that are under pressure. It's 90% of the population. So we as leaders, we need to put a little hold and educate our supporters not to become a mob. We can go there, make our voices be heard, but be careful how we get to that when we get to that line.
Absolutely, but we do that all the time. Dr. David Hines' show on Politics 101, London's show, he's frequently live and he's edifying the public and so forth and so on. We do that all the time. And Kadaki, he does that. That's what we do. We don't instigate. We don't send people out there to do bad things. We stand up when there's injustices meted out to Guyanese, all Guyanese. It's not just an African Guyanese thing. We represent all Guyanese, unlike others who are speaking and they come out in their bulk and then they preach their racism and they try to paint us with that brush. It is not going to work. Let's say good morning. Let's say good morning to Fisherman who's watching. Good morning to you, my friend.
Pressure boss pipe. Pressure boss pipe, boy. Umaninza, Guyana, de underwater. Oh, the wrong. Sorry. Umaninza, Guyana, de under pressure. What? Bangamere is $400 pong. Trout $400 pong. Oh, you go buy that with sell back, buy. I just come and tell about me some buy me little fish and mix with me little.
In other words, what he's saying, pressure bust pipe. Things rough for everybody, regardless of their ethnicity. Things rough. Things are bad in the country. Governance gone down to the drain. Irfan Ali is wild and out of control. He's a wild little boy uttering wild statements that those statements do not add up to anything close to unifying Guyana. We're not buying into that. Dr. David Hines, over to you. This death threat, you said that we all should condemn a death threat. Coming from a madman, and I'll say this, the police have said that they picked this man up several times. He had to undergo psychiatric treatment and all manner of things. And people in the area know this guy is a mad guy, a madman. I don't like to describe people as such because if I were, then Irfan Ali and all of them would be in that category, probably worse than that man. But a man with psychiatric problems that Irfan Ali now wants to use in order to get some sort of sympathy towards him, but yet no sympathy towards the Bacchus family. The real victims in this is the Bacchus family. But Irfan Ali wants to insert himself over a statement made by Robeson Ben's nephew, this madman, right? Dr. Hines, your take.
Mark, the PPP is on the road to turn Guyana into a full dictatorship, an ethnocracy. And they want to do so without any pushback from the population, any resistance from the population. So what they are trying to do is to kill resistance. And the way you do that is that you criminalize resistance, all right? And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to criminalize what you're doing, what I'm doing, and now a man of unsound mind uttering something, they are going to pull in him and criminalize him. They are trying to criminalize protest, and we must not allow them to do that. That is why I do not think that we ought to apologize in any fulsome way for what happened at Monrepos. It is the PPP that must apologize for what happened at Monrepos, because they either staged it, or even if they didn't stage it, they created the conditions for it. They're the ones who need to apologize for what happened at Their intention is to stop resistance in the country. And we must not fall for that. Listen, you know, people, every time black people protest, they force us, we have to say, please be peaceful, please be peaceful. You know what's the assumption there? Is that black people are inherently inherently criminal, inherently violent. That is what they're forcing us to do. And I refuse to do that. I am not, every time black people go on the road, please be peaceful. Black people got intellect. They got understanding. And they know how to be peaceful. And so they're forcing us to join them in criminalizing these people. And I am not going to do that. I am not going to do that. I will condemn violence. And it comes from everywhere. I saw violence on March 6th at March 7th. I saw violence at Lusican on March 6th. And it came from Indian Guyanese. I saw Indian Guyanese chase policemen and women, the same policemen they're asking to protect them. They were chasing them at Bad Settlement. No, this is double standard. On the one hand, you're saying them black man police are good. But when you're under attack, you want them black man police to come and protect you. You stay silent when the black man police are attacking black people. But when you're under attack, you want the black man, this double standards stop. We have to speak out against it. We cannot allow Indian Guyanese, whether they're rich or poor, to blackmail us and to make it look as though black people are the problem. We are the violent one. You have violence among East Indians, you have violence among Amerindians, you have violence among black people. There's violence among all races. But I resent this notion of always painting black people as violent. They are not inherently violent. There is violence in the black community, like in all communities. But this thing that they're inherently violent and forcing us black leaders to always have to say, please be peaceful. I am not doing it. I am not doing it. I'm asking all of Guyana to be peaceful. All of Guyana, Indians, Africans, Amerindians, and government to be peaceful. I am not saying no black people. Tell them they must be peaceful as though they invent violence. I resent it as a black man. I am not going to fall into that trap.
All right. Well said. Thank you so much, Dr. David Hines. Oftentimes that's what we have to do because of how the PPP would react. And so whenever there's protest, we always have to say to the protesters, y'all be peaceful. But the PPP, they don't say that to their protesters. And sometimes in many cases, their protesters are 100 times worse than how they're attempting to describe others. Our operator can give us a...
And I am telling, if I may, Mark.
Sure, Dr. Hines, sure.
The violence lies in the state. The state has the guns. The state has the monopoly on violence. Those beautiful people who were walking down that road 2 days ago, they were not armed. All they had were their bodies. They were not armed. Why are we referring to them as violent? They were not armed. They were walking down that road for the world to see. They were brave people because they were facing not just the guns of the police, the guns of the army, which should not be on the streets. You want to bring the army on the street, but the police cannot control the situation. And you are telling me police cannot control a couple of hundred of protesters, women, children, that you have to bring the police out. You have declared martial law. You have declared military, you have brought out military might against ordinary unarmed citizens, and then you're turning back and saying that they cause mayhem. at Monrepo. The meme was created and caused by the armed government, which in the full view of the world, back out police and soldiers against citizens of small villages.
All right, let's go quickly to this report to remind folks and remind some of the PPP supporters and remind Irfan Ali what their style of protest look like.
The violent actions of the People's Progressive Party supporters at Bath Settlement has led to the injury of 4 school children and police officers. Here is that report.
Bath Settlement on the west coast of Berbice has seen violent protesting by supporters of the PPP following Thursday's declaration of regional elections for District 4. A school bus transporting children that attended school in Belladrum was attacked, with a number of children injured. Friday's unrest saw blocking and burning of roads, destruction to public property, and the assault on police officers, most notably with bottles and other projectiles. The violent protesters have also blocked traffic in a number of areas, preventing citizens from going about their daily activities. Luzignan on the east coast of Demerara saw a larger number of PPP supporters protesting, causing unrest beginning Friday morning. It is only after a prolonged period did one member of the opposition address the violent protests, suddenly asking protesters to keep the peace. At 4 p.m., well beyond the period of violent protests, the leader of the opposition issued a message to the supporters. On Thursday, leaders of the PPP on several occasions disrupted the work of GCOM at its command center. Shaquille Bourne for Info.
Doctor, let's, before we get Dr. Hines and Mr. Crawford, let's get the take from Apostle London on the issue of hypocrisy. We saw what happened at Bath Settlement. Nothing in comparison to what we saw on the east coast of Demerara. And there were reports of people being robbed and all manner of different things right there at Bath Settlement. Your take on the hypocrisy, sir.
Thank you for asking. I reiterate, since I've said this before and I will continue to say it, that when it applies to speaking to peaceful, as they would say, protesting, the PPP Civic is disqualified and shall continue to be disqualified from addressing any Guyanese about what is peaceful, for their hands, according to legal terms, are not clean. You just show the evidence in which, for a matter of perception, they said, listen, they're about to have the election robbed or stolen from them, and their supporters went to the streets to, in essence, disrupt every form of peacefulness, including threatening the lives of little children of African descent on a bus, threatening the lives of law enforcement officers. These people said that that was being done in defense of democracy. Now, how could one have an understanding of people being violent towards law enforcement officers in the name of defending democracy? When someone is angry at the death, the killing, the slaughtering of their loved ones, or they are, in essence, deemed riotous and they are dangerous. The PPP Civic is demonstrating to us all that they want to control the actions of all Guyanese to the extent that they even want to control our consciousness and our conscience. It shall not be the case. Every Guyanese with a sound mind should know that if the PPP Civic, through Jagdeo, had promised that this entire nation shall be ungovernable, meaning that there will be no restraint exercised at any forum in this country. What qualifies them to speak to anybody's behavior? When they were, as far as I'm concerned, if the administration, the PPP Civic administration, through their conduct, demonstrated to all Guyanese that this is the way to behave when you don't have your way, what makes it so wrong now? I've seen the supporters say that you two wrongs wouldn't make a right, and I cannot use one wrong to defend the other. So it's obvious to me that the supporters have begun to see that when we are displaying, as you just did, this is what you did, this is what you represent. It is now to say, well, okay, we were wrong then, but you shouldn't justify this behavior with that. No, it has to be justified, or it has to be clarified to show that you are disqualified from saying anything to me about peace because you don't know what peace is. You cannot be the author of chaos and then call for peace. If you want peace, approach people peacefully. Do what is right. Be just. Be fair-minded. The PPP Civic are disqualified because they're hypocritical and they're dangerous to Guyana's sustenance and development.
Quickly, well said, Apostle. Just a reminder of Irfan Ali and a group of thugs, if we want to call them political thugs, because they don't behave in a peaceful way. We will show you what Irfan Ali, the evidence of what Irfan Ali did, stop the minister's vehicle, prevent that vehicle from moving, abuse police officers. You'll see it for yourselves, guys. With two elections petitions, they've been installed. Who more could be illegal? But we don't see people who haven't voted for them, who don't support this regime, treating them in this disrespectful manner, because this is a question of a regime. The hypocrisy, Crawford. We're seeing the evidence of the hypocrisy, mind you, not propaganda we're spreading. We're showing the evidence of hypocrisy.
Mark, when you look at the behavior of the PPP, you're seeing them as a group, a small group of bare-faced people. They, when they're doing the wrong things, you must close your eyes to it. And when you're standing up for what you believe in and the oppression, it's all bad. Mind you, the PPP has embarked on an economic oppression in order to force people who doesn't support them to get angry so they could have the opportunity to wipe them out. And if you drive around the country and you look at the economic progress in this country, you will see what I'm talking about. They have orchestrated that plan in order to get the people that are being oppressed to rise up so they could cut them down. That is why when they're doing their stuff, nobody says anything, because they're handing out these cash at any beck and call. So some of them are taking it and they're staying quiet. And thus they're retaining their votes. But when you stand up for justice, it's all wrong, and you're going to be, blamed as being beastly, because that is the way they've been portraying people who do not support the party as, as hooligans. Mind you, they have some of the very people working for them doing their dirty work against the people who all the people want is a free and fair deal. And I don't see what is so hard for the installed government to produce services and goods to the people. But they're showing that it's more than racism. It's like those politicians that are up there have a total hatred for a certain sect of people.
We gotta be straightforward. They have an absolute and total hatred.
Eventually, we will see blood on this land before this behavior stops. That's the only way. From history, war brings peace. They are forcing the masses to revolt to violent behavior, because with the economic pressure, people are going to lose their minds. They're not going to be thinking logically. And I guess the people are hoping for that. They can get to, have their plan to fruition.
They're hoping for that, but Guyanese people are much smarter than that. They're not going to go down that road, because no one will benefit from that at all.
You look at the president's behavior.
We already know the mindset of that little boy.
He's,
Irfan,
he's being rude.
we already know the mindset of that little boy, Irfan, and we know that what people want is real peace in the country, and that is what we should push for, and that is what we are pushing for on this show. Let us, before we get back to Dr. Hines, as we look at the timing, we want to talk about solutions, and not just about the problems, but let us just take the people back to 2020 and what happened in bad settlement. Nothing at all compared to what happened. But yet these protesters in bad settlement were legitimate protesters, peaceful protesters. They know how to protest peacefully, because we heard some of the PPP supporters were saying that the people from protesting for the Bacchus murder by that police, they're not peaceful, they're hooligans, they're thugs, whatever. Let me just remind them of what happened and what PPP supporters did in bad settlement.
Guys are serious. These guys got to be kidding. Guys go on. Guys running. These guys gotta be kidding. This is Guyana. Feels like Afghanistan up in here. It's like a movie. I'm definitely in a movie. Wow. 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 This is protest for election. Wow. This is sad. The police are doing their jobs. Oh, we are actually, the police is literally clearing the way. Literally. Oh my goodness.
All right, gentlemen, you saw that. It's painful. It's really painful to watch. It is painful. The hypocrisy, people's properties damaged, people's vehicles burnt, people were beaten, people's shops, and all these sort of things. All manner of things happened. None of them, nobody got compensated. Nobody cares about the policeman that was beaten, chopped up. Nobody cares about the nurse and nurses that were chased out and beaten. Nobody cares about them. Nobody cares about the school children bus being attacked and these things, roads damaged. These people are peaceful protesters. They're not hooligans. They're not criminals. No, they're not. They are peaceful protesters, damaging up public roads and people's properties, beating policemen. They're peaceful people. Dr. Hines?
Yes, because their lives have more value than the lives of the darkest among us. And that we have to say that very frankly. You see, sometimes we look at these things as they happen, and we don't pay enough attention to the larger structural framework and cultural framework in which it happens. And even black people will not make a lot of noise if East Indians behave in that way. There's some black people who do that, but will make a lot of noise if black people behave in that way. There's a way in which the society has accepted anti-black racism as normative, and so they don't see it as racism. They see it as normal. And when we point out that it's racism, we are called racist. And so you talked about solution just now. One of the things that we've got to do is that we've got to break the back of anti-Black racism in this country. It has been there from the Middle Passage, come right through. And I understand that you don't enslave people for 400 years, and then within 100 years of coming out, the society accommodates them as full human beings. This society is still to accommodate people as full human beings. I am telling you, and we are seeing it. Once that prejudice finds its way into the halls of government, that is, people who feel that Black people are inferior, now have power in their hands. We see them using it economically. We see them using it. It will not occur to Irfan Ali to go to Golden Grove to compensate anybody. It will not occur to him. It's not normative. But it will occur to him very quickly because those people are on repose. In his cosmos, they are human beings. So we have that larger problem to deal with. But for now, we in this country, since independence, have had to grapple with all forms of authoritarianism, coming from both sides of the political divide. I'm saying, as a student of politics, an observer and participant, we are at the worst place that we have ever been in the last 2 years. And we now have oil, so we now have an economic weapon to beat our people on their heads with that we didn't have before. And so therefore, this country has to wake up, all of us, including Indian people, to understand that we are at grave risk. First of all, we have a little boy in power who does not have the mental capacity. I'm not talking here about his academic and intellectual capacity, which really we shouldn't even talk about. But does he have the mental capacity to govern this country? I don't think he does. He's an unstable fellow. And we have seen that in the last couple of days. And that is extremely dangerous. So, justice for this young man, it has to happen. If we don't get justice for this young man back as now, we continue to have that open floodgate where you can go and kill young men in these villages and get away with it. We cannot allow that. So we have to have justice for this young man, and we, all of us, have to agitate for it. Once we get past that, we have to have justice for ourselves. This government has to go. It really is a danger to this country. Everybody know where I stand in terms of what I feel should be the optimum government framework. Everybody knows that I am for power sharing, but for now, let power sharing go in the corner. We have to get this government out of the way. It's a danger. It's a danger to all of Guyana, and it is taking advantage of the global situation. It's taking advantage of the domestic situation. And more than that, it's taking advantage of it. It proceeds to be Black people a decision to accept their condition and not to do anything. And so when those people of Golden Grove said, we are accepting pains, we are taking off the chains, we are dealing with the mental slavery Marcus Garvey talked about, then they're beginning to say that it's David Hines and Mark Venture who's doing it for them. They are denying our people their agency as human beings who can think for themselves, who can feel pain, who can know when chains are on their hands and feet, and they are denying our people that humanity. I am not going to allow them to do that.
Well said, Dr. David Hines. As we look at the time, in wrapping up, we just want to, we showed the video there and the footage there. The still video is what happened in Bat Settlement, as the PPP supporters claim they were they were fighting for free and fair elections. And to this day, it is the PPP who doesn't want the elections results to be revealed in court through the petitions. It is the PPP. But the fact that the protesters, the PPP supporters, were able to damage properties, damage vehicles, beat people up, God in heaven knows what happened. People also got robbed. All manner of things happened. But they were peaceful protesters. Peaceful, right? Apostle London, look the evidence. Peaceful protesters?
The evidence is before us. And I hasten to say that any individual who's prepared to watch his entire nation be destroyed unless he has power should not be leading it. And that is exactly what Irfan Ali, Bara Jagdeo, and others demonstrated. They were prepared to watch all of Guyana, according to Jagdeo, become ungovernable. And in the midst of this, they saw that destruction to people's lives and the psychological well-being of our children didn't even matter. What mattered most to them was they had to have power. If you have to have absolute power, even to the peril of your own people, you should not be leading them. This act that we can see on the television screen, on the computer here, and on our phones, demonstrates to you the mind of those who now want to speak to you about peace. I repeat, for the sake of those who may lack a bit of understanding, that Irfan Ali, Bara Jagdeo, and others cannot speak to you about peace because they do not know how to lead anyone peacefully unless they are in power. That disqualifies them. A peaceful mind doesn't say that if I don't have power, then I'll destroy everything. That is somebody who has major psychological issues and who needs to be have a psychiatric evaluation. The man in Buxton isn't the only person who's considered to be mad here. It takes a madman of no mean order to say that I will destroy the whole country if I cannot lead it. And that is what Jagdeo actually said, that he's prepared to make this country ungovernable without restraint unless Ali is installed or put in there to lead. Further, please permit me, if I can, to challenge the PPP supporters to tell me when, between March, the supporters and the leadership, between March the 2nd and August the 2nd, please cite one instance in which it was a peaceful protest from you all. And I will have nothing else to say. Since you know about peace, show me in 5 months when you ever had one day of peaceful protest from March the 2nd through August.
That said, before we get back to the closing remarks of Mr. Crawford and Dr. David Hines, and since you've spoken about, showed the evidence of any peaceful protest on the part of the PPP supporters, let's go back to what Jagdeo encouraged them to do. And it's not peaceful stuff he encouraged them to do at all. And listen to the areas he mentioned, Port Morant and Annandale and so forth. Listen to what he said.
Right across Guyana, when the ministers of Granger or Nagamutu come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal. Free up the country, you're undemocratic. They're going to face a different situation right across the country.
When they come to the communities, whether it is in Berbice or Essequibo and Linden or in South Georgetown or Agricola or in Ennore or Port Morant, the people of Guyana should treat them as illegal. I said they should walk behind them, chase them out of your communities because it means they've been squatting in power.
Mr. Crawford, your closing remarks, please. Again, the hypocrisy. These guys are not about peaceful protest and a peaceful country unless they can control it. So that's as Apostle said, they will broke up everything, damage up, destroy, burn down. That's what they will do. That's what they will do. They will do to every single thing, every single part of the country, just for power. They're not concerned about governance and democracy and peace. They're not. Mr. Crawford, your closing remarks, sir.
Mark, on the 6th of March, I had the first-hand experience of coming up from Georgetown home. I dealt with the blockage at Bushlot, where I could tell you the nonsense and the madness and the total disregard for human life I've seen there, including some of my relatives, which I had some very harsh words while I was cleaning the public road. Bad settlement, I was there from about 3 o'clock until about 11 when we got to come through. And I've seen the total destruction, the disregard for lives and property and rule of law and all of these things. They could have protested peacefully. They choose to be hooligans and vagabonds, brandishing weapons, guns. I had some with guns around me. And, you know, nobody called it out. But when the coalition protests, instantly they're branding the black protesters as hooligans, as all this sorts of nonsense. All because people are trying to get a level playing field, which they created 20-odd years ago. And this is the end result. How long can you have someone on the ground? There must be a retaliation for being suppressed. They know that. They're using the economic weapon to create these situations. And one more thing I want to point out. All those places from the 6th of March, 2020 that had disturbances, last year we see all those areas being flooded. And if that doesn't tell them that is a bad omen for what they are doing to the rest of the people in the country, they are going to see some more. It's not by man, it's by the hand of God. Now, these people behavior across the country, the ones who are condemning the protests when, you know, justice is not being served, they are blinded by hate, by stupidity, by racism, and also with the invincible feeling of they got money in their bank. When people who do not subscribe to the PPP are being brutalized and you stand up for it, you're being chastised. You must be a slave within your own country, a country that was built upon the backs of slaves, our ancestors, many of us. We must not be afraid to stand up for what is right and to call out an administration, be it a coalition or the PPP installed, for the wrongdoings. The PPP, they have been abusing the authority given to them by the international community. It is time that they stop, because people are going to lose their cool. You can't go in there by foul means. When we had a democratic system running under David Granger, and come in here and brutalize people and expect to have a free pass, it's not going to happen. It's not the olden days. And the shooting in Essequibo, but this young guy, Quindon, and many other wrongdoings. We need these things to stop. We are seeing young mothers now who are being fished out of rivers or drains. Just this morning, I saw a young lady in a bag from Kanji at
29-year-old hairdresser. Lots of bad things happening. We are looking at time, Mr. Crawford. Lots of bad things. We agree with you. Lots of bad things are happening. People being fished out of trench. A 29-year-old hairdresser out there from Kanji. We've got to do more than just praying for the country, man. But we get all of your points, Mr. Crawford. All of your points. 30 seconds more. You were saying something. Sorry.
Ali needs to act responsible and respectful when he goes into the opposition, or whenever they do. He cannot go in there and address people and try to flex his muscles, saying, you don't know who you're dealing with, or you're going to find out. These are strong arm tactics that is going to cause problems down the road. You know, they should be reaching out to the families that are in distress and go from there. Instead of that, they are going elsewhere. Like David Hines said, you run to Manipo and you issue money before the nightfall. But the people who have lost their children or child, you're not going to them. What are the reasons for you to be a government if you can't care for all of the people? There is nothing wrong or nothing hard about caring for all Guyanese, but again, it comes back to being racist, and we're seeing the implementation of the caste system. Eventually, the PPP supporters who are cursing black people and all these nonsense on the street, they're going to end up being the chamars of the system that they helped build. What are they going to say now? They won't. They will run and look for the same black people that they're cursing to help them to have a better life. Watch it. The caste system is coming again.
The caste system has always been there. People darker than us, 10 times darker than us, addressing us as black man. We've seen the disrespect and all these things. It has got to stop. Thank you so much, JR. Dr. David Hines, anything? Closing remarks? The way forward? The protest has subsided. The people are still looking for justice. Any hope that they will get justice out of this case, sir?
Well, the protests have not subsided. The people are out there. They were out there yesterday in Golden Grove. I'm sure that they would be out. And so the protests have not subsided. From my own personal view, I'm not a rich man, but God has blessed me with some talents. And as I've done with all of my life, I've put those talents at the service of ordinary people. When Indian people cried at one point in this country, I cried with them. I stood with them against an African government and brought down that government. When an African government came back to power in 2015, from the first wrong thing they did, I said, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. They kicked me out, they do all kind of thing. I said, they're wrong. And if I can stand with Indian people in their hour of need, if I can stand up against black governments and help to remove them for wrong things, I damn well can do it for black people like myself and against Indian government. And I ain't who call me racist. I've gone past that. I've gone past that. Black people are beautiful too. Black people are human beings too. And in their hour of need, I'm standing with them. Doesn't mean that I'm not standing with Indian people. But the people who are under the gun, both literally and metaphorically, are African people. And I stand with them. And I will continue to stand with them. Because if black people are free in Guyana, all people are going to be free. And for Indian people who believe they are free, when black people run free, they're wrong. They may enjoy some privileges. They may get a $200 for Palori and potato, but that is not freedom. And so if the burden of bringing real freedom to Guyana lies with the darkest among us, I'm prepared to stand with them to bring freedom to all Guyana. Because if those who are kicked down to the bottom can raise themselves to the top, as they're raising themselves, they're raising others. When we walk through the gates of the plantation, ensure slavery would end in Guyana, and that our brothers and sisters who would come late would come as free. And if that burden falls on us,
Thank you so much, Dr. David Hines. I stand with you as well, unapologetic for what we do on our shows is try to show the other side of the coins. Apostle does the same with his lives every single day. It is not that Apostle London is against any particular race. He wants a better Guyana. He wants a beautiful Linden, a beautiful Region 10, and every day he fights for that. Today he addressed some students of Mackenzie High School. I'm sure he would have left them with some positive words and going out there to become better citizens, to go off to universities and so forth. That is what we all want, all of us want. And that is what people like London, David Hines and Crawford and others are doing, especially when we have our shows, albeit Crawford doesn't have a show, but the frequency in which he attends on Ben Sharp Radio, people think is his show as well. And so we should not be apologetic at all for these things. We stand when others are hurt. The evidence is there. But when we stand on the side when our Indian brothers and sisters are hurt, we are considered good people. Mark is a nice guy. David Hines is a nice guy. Apostle London is a nice guy. They're a nice guy. When we stand on the side of our Indian brothers and sisters when injustice is meted out to them, we're nice people. But when we stand on the side of our African brothers and sisters who injustices are oftentimes meted out to them, then we're called all manner of names, jokers, black pudding man. I don't know if they call in Apostle London chicken man out there in Linden, truck driver. All things they say we live in basements and planting chips we sell. Oh gosh, we're tired of that, but it does nothing to take us away from our objective, which is to ensure that we have a better Guyana, a fair Guyana, a just Guyana, and there's no discrimination by any government. And what we're seeing under this installed PPP regime is discrimination, racism, corruption, drug dealings, all manner of things we're seeing. And we are saying no to that, and to hell with those who describe us otherwise. Apostle London, your closing remarks, sir. We leave you to have the last word because you're apostle.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
To all of us, I would remind or seek to remind you that our nation has got echoes of calls for unity, but evidences of actions of disunity, especially displayed by the PPP Civic Administration. We must always bear in mind that when we launch assaults against ethnic groupings, like the Imran young man who said that all Black people should be killed, he is not arrested as far as I'm aware, but he threatened the life of Prime Minister, of the one who's Prime Minister sitting in Prime Minister's seat, Phillips. He threatened the life of Hugh Todd, the Minister of Tourism as well, Onish. He threatened the life of so many people, Robeson Ben, you too, because you're also Black, by his description. And when a young man can do that and he is not under arrest, he's not placed under any degree of pressure legally, it tells me that we are led politically by people who have no concern. There's racism and there's classism. Irfan Ali was quick to do a live broadcast when his life was threatened by a man of unsound mind. However, he's yet to do a live broadcast about a young African boy being shot by members of the Guyana Police Force. A little primary school child on his way from home with his mother. Guyanese, I must inform you, I must plead with you that you have to understand what is happening around you, and you must be cognizant of the fact that there are people at the helm of this country who could not care less if it were entirely destroyed as long as they are wealthy and they remain in power. They are your greatest enemies. Finally, I say to those in Golden Grove, you have a right to stand your ground, because if a government or an administration can attack a place of worship, there's nothing, you see that on television, there was an assault on a place of worship, so endearing to people with a rich history. When you can attack that, there's nothing left for them to do to you that is worse. And this administration has demonstrated to us that they're prepared to attack even what you believe in the name of guiding, protecting, governing, and bringing peace. I say finally that the PPP Civic Administration should be tried at an international court for crimes against humanity, for they are criminals and they are miscreants. I thank you.
And thank you so much, gentlemen. I know I have said the last word, but I have seen some of the comments by people who are asking us not to forget, please, not to forget the Sioux Gate level of corruption, allegations of corruption, bribery, and all these manner of things against Jack Dale. Jack Dale, over a week now, has promised that he's going to sue. He's going to sue. Nothing has happened as yet. We know it's just a game, but we don't want you guys to forget at all that Sue and Sioux Gate, his allegations of bribery against Barra Jack Dale is still out there. And we need SOCU to investigate this matter. That is what they should be investigating. Now with what Irfan Ali hollering, but what? People must come out and condemn some madman that threatened to kill him. People must come out. People must show sympathy to him. But they're not showing sympathy to others. No one is condoning any sort of acts of violence or threats against people's lives. Look at that little thug, that little blackface star baby boy Imran. Look at what he has said. Has Jack Day or Irfan or any one of them in the PPP condemned that guy? Had it been a person of African descent, not a black, but because that guy is black like tar, he's blacker than all three of us put together, right? Had it been someone of African descent, trust me, the police would have been, truckloads of police would have already been there to arrest him and dig several charges on him. But it is what it is, and it is obvious what it is in Guyana. Political discrimination, racism, and as Crawford mentioned earlier, economic oppression. But it's Lincoln Lewis, the veteran trade unionist who termed this a few years ago, he described the situation under the PPP as economic genocide. My folks, we are back again witnessing economic genocide in Guyana, where persons of African descent, their lands are being forcefully taken away from them. We'll talk more about that. Mr. London, thank you so much. You were at that school, Mackenzie High School. You know I attended that school too, right?
You did? No,
just for one day, I stopped by for a quick minute.
Okay.
And so I tell people that I attended Mackenzie High School. I don't want to sound as though I'm fake, like a particular man who said he attended university. That little dummy. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Crawford, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. London, Mr. Hines, everybody, good afternoon.
Thank you. And Dr. David Hines, thanks as well. Appreciate it. Glad I was able to call these gentlemen at the last minute and they were able to hop out. They're good people. Good people want the best for Guyana. We want the best for all Guyanese. This is not a program where we come and we promote any violence at all. We don't believe in that. We don't want that. All of us need to be living together as Guyanese because, you know, when I look around my family tree, there's no one left out. No ethnic group is left out. And I'm sure a lot of you can share that as well. In my family, there's everybody, everyone, from Indian to Portuguese to Amerindian, you name it, everyone, African, everyone, every single one. So there's no justification at all, none whatsoever, for me to be against anyone. If I'm against anyone, it simply means that I am against myself and blood relatives. And so having said that, is that we all want the best for Guyana. All of us. We don't want corrupt politicians. We don't want racist politicians. And especially the rhetoric coming out from that little boy who doesn't know better, who cannot construct a proper sentence. He has a problem with everything, including the university that he attended, including his first degree. 19 fraud charges against him. 19, not one. A lot of things. And so, including the protest in front of the Pegasus. And so these have no moral authority to condemn anybody at all. And just like the mad guy who threatened or who uttered those threatening remarks against Irfan Ali, should not be condoned, mind you. But nobody's talking, Irfan is not talking about the guy getting psychiatric help and treatment and so forth. But one of their own who got caught red-handed with drugs at the airport. She cannot be sentenced as yet. Most likely is not going to be spending any time in jail. We're hearing that a psychiatric evaluation has been ordered. Who is going to order a psychiatric evaluation against that madman? Who is going to do that? Not even the madman that the madman allegedly threatened. Not even that madman. We're living in a society run by a bunch of mad people and a bunch of kleptomaniacs who don't give a damn about developments or peace in that country. None whatsoever. So don't be fooled by their gimmicks. Do not be fooled. I'm out of here. See you guys later. God bless you, and continue to pray for a peaceful Guyana. All of our people must live in peace and harmony. That is what the message is about. So long.
Guyana feels like Afghanistan up in here. It's like a movie. I'm definitely in a movie. Wow. 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 This is protest for election. Wow. This is sad. The police are here doing their jobs.